right, this is our final episode 3. Thank you guys so much for joining us. My name's Tiffany Silva Herlin. I'm a licensed clinical social worker. We have Rivka and Aiden with us to finish our last episode and talk about what was it like to return home after residential treatment. Please remember that this podcast is not a replacement for therapy. Please always seek a mental health professional for your situation. All right, let's talk about what's it been like since you've been home. Now, on our last episode, you said, I asked you if this was worth it. So you've been home how long now?
I've been home for a couple days over a year, so a year.
Okay, so looking back after a year, tell us a little more about what's made it worth it.
I think it's not just like knowing that you've changed, but when you kind of almost like remove yourself from yourself and look at yourself. So like, if that makes any sense. I don't know if that actually makes sense.
Keep going.
But
I like it.
It's looking at this change you've made, because just maybe when you're looking at it like, oh, this is just who I am, like bringing back this good part of you and knowing that's who you are, and then looking back at it and being like, interesting. Like that's kind of like, that was kind of the coolest thing, is like being, this is really interesting how I went from this angel of a child to this demon of a child to this
thriving young adult.
to this thriving young adult. Like, I think
you're getting very meta. I love it.
And
keep going.
I think it's something that you look back at and you're just like, wow. Some people, like, it takes, even if it takes a minute to be able to realize that, it's just, wow. It's like that thing of like, you just realize that at one moment, it's just, that's where I was, you know?
Well, you've been hiking up in our mountains, right? Mm-hmm. Have you ever gone on a really hard hike? In the middle of it, you're like, I hate this hike. I'm dying, but not really dying. But you're just so thirsty.
Yes.
And tired, and you want to give up?
If you go into southern Utah and you hike Indian Peak.
Okay. But when you got to the top and you look down, what did you feel?
It is the most beautiful sight ever. And then you like just, even if you're whispering, you hear the echo and you're just like, it's this idea of, it almost feels like you're up there and you're like, now, especially when you made all that progress, it's like that hill climb that you can symbolically relate it to, this hill climb of progress. And then you get to that top where all that echo is. And it's just like, now let me spread this through my friends and this positivity and this growth to my friends who are still struggling, and let that echo through them, you know? Like,
yeah.
And I think it kind of really emphasizes that idea, but it's so hard.
Well, let's talk about that. Mom, has it been easy bringing him home?
No part of this
right there.
No part of this process has been easy. There is no easy street in this entire journey. You know, in as much as transitioning to not having him home and to our reality that was trans country, right? Like, we had to just learn to function as a family with many states between us, and being flights away from one another, and Zoom calls once a week and all that, and letters and cards. There's a transition in coming home and all of a sudden living under the same roof, and life is not perfect, and the challenges are still going to be there of, are you going to go turn to your toolbox, or are you going to turn to an old habit? And the transition home was challenging. We each had to learn the new version of ourselves within a community that now was coexisting physically, right? So we had all evolved, but there was this physical space between us that allowed for the space between interactions. And all of a sudden, we were no longer in that reality anymore. And now there was no week between calls. You didn't have the same dinner table.
That break.
Right.
Yeah.
And there were there were sort of like, I'll call them triggers, which is so vogue and overused. But there were moments where they felt familiar, and we almost wanted to go back to what we would have done 3 years before. And so fighting that is a real challenge. but each time you overcome it and turn to your toolbox instead is so rewarding. And so the more time that lapsed with him home, the more experiences we got to have that were perhaps similar to experiences before, but we were able to overcome them using our toolbox. And there were a few times that we had to sort of reset, like, whoa, that did not go the way we wanted to.
Yeah.
And the ability, right, to have the family meeting, to unpack and say, okay, that went really wrong. Let's regroup. What should have happened? What should have never happened? Right.
But that's what therapy is supposed to teach you. Therapy isn't meant to keep you in it forever. We don't want you as clients forever. And we want you to go on and say, here's these tools, here's this experience. Now use it, because you're going to struggle. You're going to stumble. And we want you to unpack things when you do.
I want to add also, it's like, at least me being a teenager, at least it's like sometimes I'll just be like, can we just go back to the 1 week calls? Like, once we calls, like,
I want to break.
Seriously.
Well, that's a funny thing.
And then,
go ahead.
Also, it's something to also emphasize on that idea of it's not this perfect transition. It's kind of even like with that progress in treatment, it's 2 steps forward, 1 step back. Like, you're gonna have those moments of, and it might be more steps forward than that 1 step back, but you're still making that positive growth because it's. Nothing in life is smooth. Let's just get that straight. Nothing. It's a very stormy sea.
Yes, that's true. Well, and I always like to joke with parents that while your son or daughter coming home from treatment, you're still getting a knucklehead teenager back. Just not one that's, causing safety issues or big crises, and but they're still going to be teenagers.
Right.
You're still going to have your moments where they don't want to get out of bed, they don't want to do their homework, they don't want to do a chore.
So I think there are a few things that are critical to remember. One is the journey's not over just because we've changed the geography of the family. And so I think my sister says the day we're done is the day we're buried, right? Like, she's just like, you're just never done.
Yeah.
Right. And so there's always an opportunity for growth and improvement as long as we're alive. And so I would say that the journey changes geographically, but you're still on it. So don't get off the train. The child, you need to have a therapist in place, right? So within the first week of Aiden arriving, he met a therapist, and we were lined up with 3 in case the first one didn't click. And after his first meeting with her, he was about done with her. Like, he was like, I'm never seeing her again. And I asked him, do you want a second date to just confirm that? Or are you ready to move on? Because we had a backup. Like, it wasn't like this had to be her. And he chose to go for a second meeting. And after the second
now we're
meeting,
inseparable.
And now she's been just such an incredible resource.
It's because she was doing her job.
Exactly.
You don't want her to be your best friend. You want her to challenge you.
That's exactly right. And so, but it took him being willing to go to that second meeting. And so remember, I always say to people, finding a therapist is like dating. You're going to go on a lot of first dates potentially. It's okay not to click with your first one. Just then go meet with someone else. And if it felt like there were a lot of things a lot of boxes were being checked, then go on a second date. Go back for another appointment and make sure. If it's not for you, it's okay. Like, not every therapist is for every person.
Yeah.
He also, so in the first week, he met his therapist and a psychiatrist, right? We needed to hand off. So there had to be a psychiatric handoff from his current provider to a new provider. It happens to be, we love her. She's still with us. But even if she wouldn't have been, then she would have handed off again. But make sure that there's no disruption. The families that I've talked to that did not do that and then sort of like hobbled and then it just dropped off like a cliff, they're flailing. And they're flailing because they haven't continued the process. So you have a child coming home from 24-hour supervision, from daily therapy, from weekly meetings with the nurse, psychiatrist, whoever they're meeting with. And if you're not continuing that, on what planet do humans sustain themselves from 24-hour care to 0 and do well? Right? It's just not a real life expectation. So set your child up for success. Set yourself up for success. Make sure you have a therapist. Make sure that there's somebody to run the family interference. It may be your own provider, it may be the child's provider, or maybe someone different. For us, we used a program called Wonder. It's, there are several wraparound services that are designed to support a family through this,
amazingly.
Through this very transition of coming home from residential treatment. In this particular program, we had a counselor, if you will, and he had his own. He met with his twice a week.
Wait, real quick.
Yeah.
I kept meaning to ask in our previous episodes, did you go see a counselor while he was in therapy?
They needed one. They needed one.
Does today end with a Y?
Yeah, no, I guess I kept meaning to point that out, is like so many parents need to be doing their own work while they're in treatment and then afterwards.
100%.
So coming back to that.
The kids, I think it's also, I mean, obviously you can speak to this more, but like, I think, at least from my point of view, it looks like as if I know the kid, like obviously me as a student, I'm in the actual facility and I'm going through my treatment, but like the parents also are going through treatment right now.
Yeah.
It's just in a different, they're just doing at-home treatment, but it's as if like spiritually they're in that same position as us, just not, but their physical body is not there.
Yeah, I think one, show me someone who doesn't need to unpack stuff, but also what messaging is, what are you looking to send to your child? Are you in it or are you not? If you're home cruising along and setting expectations of your child, but you're not plugged in, what is the message? How can the child not just see rejection? And I think that's what's so important, is understanding, like, we are all going to do this. This entire family is going on a journey. The siblings, I would say, need to be given more space to make their own choices, right? They need to opt in more individually, and we need to extend a lot of grace to them. They're coming out of a traumatic situation, and it's important for them to have their own support and structure to heal from it. And so each of our children were given their own setup for that, in addition to us having our own. And then, of course, participating in family therapy. So every one of us has been on a 3-year journey of healing and improving communication and community and family systems and understanding relationships. And that's why I said, I think it was in the first, I don't know, I'll say it all day long, but Aiden's journey has been a gift to our whole family. We're still healing. It'll be a lifelong of healing from the trauma, but we are all better for having been on this journey of mental health awareness, healing, development. So I would say the number one thing is, when you're transitioning home, you need to set up like the logistical pieces. Your child needs a replacement or a continuity for everything that they're doing.
They need a whole community.
So your child needs a therapist, your child needs a psychiatrist. You need to make sure your support's in place, and hopefully it's already been in place while you were going through the process. And then your family needs somebody to continue the family therapy. So it could be that it's one of the therapists already in place. Some families like to have almost like a family therapist, and so each system can make a choice that's best for theirs. And some of it will be trial and error.
Well, because it's not only Aiden coming home; it's a big transition for him. It's a big transition for you. But if there's siblings involved, how did they respond to him coming home?
One of our children really struggled. He was not ready for the source of trauma to come close, and so that was a challenge in itself, of supporting him and allowing him the space and the grace. And I will. Hats off to Aiden for being incredibly gracious with this one sibling who needed more time before interacting. And so it's been a journey. And like I said, we're really excited to finally all come together in May. And it started with just being in the same space with not a whole lot of communication. And then sort of like, right, it's been a year-long experience of the needle moving, slow at times, almost imperceptibly so. And then there would be moments where you could see very tangible growth and improvement, and then it would sort of kind of stale out, and staying patient. And I would say grace is the name of the game in this particular stage of the game. Really giving everybody benefit of the doubt. We're all trying hard. Everybody's in it. And there will be times where we just have to give people space to experience whatever it is. And I think understanding that the feelings are not always pretty, right? There are moments of anger. There are moments of pain and sorrow and mourning, and allowing for all the feels, just feel it all. be in it, process it, express it if you need to, and then let's be productive about moving forward. So allowing for the process to define itself as long as we are all in it 100%. So again, parent participation is pivotal, and your
absolutely.
leadership role, right? We talked about the family system, and the parents are the leaders of that system. And so your leadership role, you lose your co-parenting of the program, right? So while you're in program, you have a co-parent, and there's this incredible partnership of, it's a multifaceted team of leadership. And you are now, as a parent, it's you and your spouse, right? Or maybe you have a co-parent, but there's significantly less people in the party.
Yes,
and
it's a smaller community that
yes,
you're coming home to.
And so you're going back to your nuclear family. You're going back to that insular community, and that in itself is a huge adjustment, because as a parent, you're going to find yourself doubting decisions or what is the right call here. Do the best you can. Turn to your toolbox. I think one of the first questions I ask is this from the toolbox or is this from a familiar past? Like, just identify where the source of whatever it is that's about to come out of my mouth is, because that's going to tell you whether it should or shouldn't fall out.
Yeah.
Right? If it's from the toolbox, you're probably okay to continue. But if this is just from the past of some kind of like knee-jerk response that you're used to, or it just kind of came to you, hold it, walk away, take a moment. Like, we say this all the time in our family, I need space. That puts an immediate hold on all things. Go take your space. It might mean a shower. It might mean a run. It might mean just, I need to just go to my room and be. And so allowing for, we spent all this time learning our coping skills and building this incredible toolbox of a myriad of coping skills, right? Physical, emotional, mental. Let people use it.
Yeah.
Like, use your toolbox, carry it around with you, and turn to it. Turn to it when it's you on you. Turn to it when it's a child on you, when it's you and your spouse. Like, turn to your toolbox. And the more you use it, the more intrinsic and intuitive it becomes.
I mean, a lot of this is to take what you've learned in therapy and to make sure that you're doing that inner work, that introspective work, to stop and say, hey, am I falling into old patterns or am I creating new ones? Right? Like we've been working on. And we're human. We're going to fall into old patterns. That's how our brain works. Our brain likes a path of least resistance. Creating new neural pathways takes time and effort. There's challenge around that. So remember, we're creating even newer pathways when we shift the geography. That's true. Absolutely.
Right? So we learned all these new things and all these new ways that we communicate in this 30-month period of not being in the same space. And only having these trial runs, right? And only having these visits that eventually became overnights, and he had come home and all that. But now this is not temporary, right? Like, this is not a weekend. This is not a week long. This is, and then the next week and the next week, and figuring out what is the next step, what's school, what's next, what's the new cycle like, what's the new, in his case, he's a tennis player. He's an avid tennis lover. Figuring out, we looked at a couple of tennis academies. Which ones do we want to engage with? It's 3 years later. We get to kind of start a fresh start, but we know that tennis is, it's his go-to. It's his healthy space of just thriving in that sport. Why wouldn't we find that? So, finding the new scheduling, the new habits, the new rhythm that works not only for each individual, but also our family system.
Aiden, I'm going to ask you a question. What's been the biggest adjustment for you being home?
In treatment, the schedule is out. The schedule is set every day. It's lunch is at this time. Therapy is at this time. Group is at this time. School is at this time. Now it's school is at this time. Practice is at this time. What am I doing? Like, when am I doing homework? When am I doing this? When am I going to bed? Like, that is now, that's now up to me. I have to build my own structure. I think that was the biggest adjustment. I think I've done a pretty good job building that for myself. I've been pretty good about it. But it was definitely the hardest thing to adjust to, was figuring out my new rhythm.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, because you're not being told, but now you're going on a more independent structure you have to be in charge of.
So I think also remembering that children thrive in structure.
Oh, yeah.
Right? They need boundaries, they need rules, they need guidelines, they need structure. It's like a sacred word. And understand who plays what role. In our family, my husband is far more structured than I am. I travel for work. I'm here, I'm there, I'm coming, I'm going. I change things all the time. I am not the icon of structure. So understanding that Joey takes the lead on that, right? Like that, Joey and Aiden tick that way. That's how they function best. So my role is to kind of let them do it, even if, I'm maybe on a different rhythm today or this week or this month or this year. But allowing for that and supporting that and understanding that that structure is so necessary. So when Aiden came home, where, we were empty nesters for a year, right? Our other 3 kids, 1 graduated, 2 are in college, and here we were empty nesters with 2 puppies. And now, we're not empty nesters anymore.
One decided he wanted to come back.
And so just that adjustment in itself was like, oh, okay. So now meals had to be structured again, where, before I'm a fly by the seat of my pants and we'll eat when we're hungry, and my husband loves meal times. And so we sort of just kind of rolled with it. But all of a sudden now we have meal times again, because now there are 2 people in our family who really enjoy having that structure and knowing when to expect what. So every family is going to have whatever structure. You need to define structure. And if you're really committed to your child thriving, that structure needs to start with him or her, the child coming home. And then how does it fit into the family unit? And so it might mean that, in some families, there are 2 dinners, right? Our older kids they're not hungry at 6:00. My husband and Aiden, they're eating at 6:00. 6:01, it's too late. The dogs are fed at 5:30. There is a rhythm. At
4:00, though, it's too late for the dogs.
We have got to stick with it for everyone to be okay. But then some of us are not hungry at 6. And so just kind of rolling with it. And again, grace.
Yeah.
Extend grace to everybody and everything, so that we can all find what is our new normal, and everybody needs to be thriving. And that might not be exactly the same schedule for all 6 members of our family. And that's okay too. That's part of having a bunch of young adults in our house.
So there's got to be some flexibility, some grace, some reevaluating how things run. That makes sense.
And making priorities, right? There are going to be priorities, and we're like a list family. We like lists. We like to kind of outline it, because sometimes when you put it down on paper, you kind of recognize that this is not that important. Let's kind of put that to the bottom. And so allowing for the family system to communicate as a unit. And sometimes, Aiden did not love this when we would be like, so we need to have a conversation about XYZ. We could do it now, or we could do it after dinner. And he'd be like, I don't want to talk about it at all. And we'd be like, now or after dinner? Right? Or sometimes...
Still don't want to talk about it.
Or sometimes if we knew that it was a big conversation that we were going to have, we would set it up for Sunday was our family kind of recap day.
At first, and then we started
right.
recapping when we needed to.
Right. So we had a set family meeting on Sunday afternoon, and that was the day that we addressed the difficult things that didn't need immediate addressing. So we kind of had an agenda. By the time Sunday afternoon came around, there was an agenda that had been sort of compiled last week. And we would form the schedule for this coming week. Because when he first came home, there were so many appointments. There was adjusting braces that had not been adjusted for God knows how long, and things like that, right? So there were just a lot of things that had to happen. And so we took it week by week. And we set a family schedule every Sunday. And eventually we found the rhythm. And it took, we sort of graduated our wraparound services in hindsight after 4 months, but we did do it for 5 months. In that 5th month, we barely used them. And we were sort of finding ourselves not needing it. We preferred to run our meetings ourselves. So find the support that works for you, and graduate when all the family members are done, right?
Because otherwise, it's not, you're going back into community, not as individuals. And so if not everyone is healed, then that's not a community. So how can the healing process is not done if not everyone's done healing. So how you can't integrate back into a community.
Did you feel like you got treated differently?
No, because I felt like when I moved home, the amazing thing I had when moving into another state was no one had to know. And so I had this...
You had a fresh start.
I had this... I think that like I had this opportunity to reset and make new friends. My story started fresh, and I felt really... Like, I felt almost reborn. Like that was kind of that feeling. Learning to walk again.
Within our family, though, we told all the children that he went to boarding school. So even within that, like the cousins, right? They didn't know that it was a therapeutic program. So it was very much, he went to boarding school. That was the story. That was our, where's Aiden? At boarding school. And then he came home. So it allowed for a pretty graceful reentry. And I think that's important as well. Remember that this is this child's story, and this child's a young person. And so don't put it out there too far, right?
I agree.
It's his story to tell. And if Aiden wants to tell his story, I 100% support that. But it's not only my story. So did my close circle, like I recall having a conversation with Aiden about like, why do your friends know? Well, my inner circle needs to know what I'm going through. That's why. That's my story. This is my trauma too. And that's part of each of our stories. Also, remember that your child, the goal is reunification and reentry. And so we want to make sure that we preserve our children's ability to come back and rejoin and be productive members of society, and not have some kind of target on their back or some kind of label.
Yeah.
In Aiden's case, he was fortunate enough to be able to restart and come home to a new state. But most children are going to go home to the same house, to the same family, to the same neighborhood.
Yeah.
And remember that. Remember, they need to come home to this. So be careful what you put out there about your child when you send them to treatment, when you are getting the support that you need. Get the support that you need, but don't gossip about your kid. This is your kid, and your kid needs to come home eventually.
Not everyone needs to know the details.
That's exactly
Perfectly
right.
saying he's at a boarding school is just fine and appropriate. If they're in your inner circle and you feel that they're safe to know more, then you can share that.
That's exactly right.
So it's by case and what's going to protect you and your family. Aiden, what habits or lessons from Discovery Ranch have helped you the most?
I honestly think this idea of like I think I mainly practiced this maybe in school the most, I feel, but like there's time that you need to work, and I think there are times where I fall back on it a little bit. I don't use it, but like work time is work time, and if you have stuff that needs to be done, and I'm gonna tell you, I don't do this at home, and I feel, I know that, and I need to work on it, but work time is, if you have work that needs to be done, you got to get that work done. You can't let it sit there. You can't just sit back and relax. Like, work time is work time. And I think that's something that I value in that. I wish I kind of need to apply it more. But it is something that I loved the most that I learned there,
It's not just going to happen. You
Right.
have to
like
do
everything
it.
comes with work. It does not come naturally. It's not, you wake up and $1 million is now sitting in your pocket. It's, you worked for however long, or you did a lottery ticket and now there's $1 million in your pocket. Like, something had to happen in order for that to happen.
Yeah. Okay. That makes a lot of sense. That things don't come for free, and that, like we've been talking in this whole series, is that things take work. Things that you value, things that are long-lasting change take work. Rivka, what tools have you learned as a family?
Take a deep breath before you talk. We all have learned behaviors that are really hard to get rid of. And I'm not sure that they ever go away. And sometimes they will rear their ugly heads and catch you off guard. And sometimes you'll be in a moment where you're like, oh my God, I almost did that, right? And you catch yourself. And so celebrate that success of catching, and then recognize it's still there. Aiden recently said to me, the trauma doesn't go away. It's always part of you. And it's true. It's always part of you. We build new pathways around it and through it. We build a toolbox, and the toolbox should always be built, right? We're forever adding things to our toolbox. Some things become obsolete. Some things we add to it. Life will create some circumstances where you're going to have to shift, and maybe, if it's pouring rain outside, going out for a run right now may not be exactly the right tool to use.
You have to be flexible.
And
things
so,
change.
Right. I don't remember where I read this, but have a top 3 scenario for every situation that you've identified. So when you experience something and you find yourself kind of grasping at straws, remember this moment, and after it, develop your top 3 for that scenario so that next time you don't have to grasp. So if it's pouring rain and what I want to do is go outside, but this is not going to work, what are my next top 3, right? And so things like that. And I know that that's very basic and concrete, but life is that basic and concrete when you just need to have your top 3 options for each type of scenario. So you're flooding, you best know what your 3 options are for removing the situation or yourself, come down from it so that you can address it. And I go back to when somebody in our family says they need space, it's like all pencils down.
You guys respect it.
All hands up, right?
Yep.
Like, the cooking shows and everybody has to raise their hands. Like, if somebody says that, we take it seriously. We don't throw it around just for naught. And that means that we cannot continue this conversation even one more moment. And so in real life, if one person is flooded, probably everybody's approaching it or maybe there, but it has taught us to ice things, to not always go. Escalated people cannot help escalated people de-escalate. So we've had to really acknowledge that if one person is escalated, odds are we're all sort of getting warm or hot. But it doesn't even matter if we are or aren't. If one person just called uncle, then we all have to kind of step back and respecting that and learning a family vocabulary of, for some people it's I'm flooded, for some people it's I need space, for some people it's I need to tap out, can we revisit this in 30 minutes? And sometimes, and that's the other thing we've learned, that some issues cannot be indefinitely postponed. And so I recognize that this is difficult for you right now. We do need to come back to this in 30 minutes. So why don't you take the next 30 minutes to do whatever it is that you want to do? But in 30 minutes, we're all meeting back here, right? So there are times where, okay, we're going to do this space thing, but it's a very short-term timeout. And learning that everything has its place in the hierarchy of priority. And there's trial and error, but we have learned to really communicate as a family. And I would say the key in our family is probably vulnerability in all caps. I think we've all learned to trust each other to be vulnerable, because what's the worst you're going to do to me?
Well, vulnerability leads to connection, true, lasting connection.
Right, and trust.
You have to have it.
Right, and so we all had to learn to do that, right? Put down your tools, put down your armor, and the worst that happens in vulnerability is what?
Connection.
And so,
and that's not even a bad thing.
Yeah, I know.
Right. And you know what you also find, and this is, I've said it before and I'll kind of wrap it into here, is we're all better versions of ourselves, because in this experience, we have all connected to ourselves in ways that we were not 3 years ago. So the journey has not only connected us to each other and created a much stronger and just a dynamic family system, but we are each connected to ourselves and know ourselves in ways that we gained through this program and journey of spending a lot of time unpacking ourselves, right?
Yeah.
We each did individual therapy and family therapy throughout the last 3 years. And so we've found some really cool parts of ourselves, our family, each other, and we're excited. We're excited to all be together in May. We're excited for our future. We're excited to watch our children fly the nest. And overall, this has been a grueling journey, one with tremendous rewards that I'm certain we have not yet seen all of.
And I'm excited to hear what the future holds for your family, especially with how hard you guys have worked to get this point. To end, what's the one thing you wish you both had known before starting this journey or treatment?
I wish I'd known how long it was going to be. I wish I had known like how it's really not a timeline. There is no timeline for it, and I wish I'd known that, but yeah.
Do you think you would have been more plugged in to kind of?
No, I think what I mean by that is like I wish I had known that like as in there's no timeline, as like I'm not coming home until I do the work. Like there is no other way, and I wish I had known that before, because I think the timeline would have been shorter.
Do you maybe not? Would you have maybe not fought things and the journey
exactly.
as much
Like, I don't
if you had
think
known
it would
that?
have been like as severe as it was if I hadn't.
Yeah.
I don't know if I didn't know, because I was pretty close to his process all along. So even when we were doing it at home, there was so much work on my end. So I would say that I was pretty close to it. I think it's helpful to know how comprehensive and how systemic the journey is. Once we sort of started realizing, like even my husband was sort of tangential initially, and then we realized like he's going to come home and live with both of us. Like he needs to be part of this. And so really understanding how inclusive this is for the whole family system helped, because then you can plug in the right resources. So the sooner you know how much of yourself you need to bring to this process, the sooner you are going to make quicker and more meaningful progress.
Absolutely.
So I would say that, would it have helped to know? I mean, probably, but I would say that in our family, the one who took the longest to figure it out, I'm not sure the kids are going to figure it out in their right time. And that's where you got to meet them where they are. And it's going to take as long as it has to. For the grownups, I think the sooner we figure it out, and we do tend to accept things that are told to us rather than having to learn it the hard way. So I do think that
not always so.
Not always. And I think that, when you bring your child to the program and you're filling out the paperwork and they tell you the expectations, you're going to come to you're going to come out here for seminar 3 times a year, and you're going to be in weekly meetings, and you're going to they tell you this. Believe them when they tell you this, right? Because you really will need to work this into your schedule. This is a top priority. This is not an option. And the sooner that you can work it into your family system, the sooner the system starts healing and then redefining itself to allow for the family to reunite.
Aiden and Rivka, it's been incredible to hear your guys' story and your journey from beginning where you were in crisis and needing help, to the struggles of what the healing process may look like through treatment. And now we're hearing this amazing story that you're coming full circle. Mm-hmm. Maybe there was a time, I'm guessing, that you didn't know if you were going to ever graduate.
I don't think there ever, there was a point where is high school even gonna happen? We're gonna even finish high school.
Okay, were you even gonna finish? So here you are finishing graduating high school. Your family hasn't been together for the number of years that he's been gone.
Together for my graduation.
That is such a cool, rising of the Phoenix story.
Yeah.
Right? So what's next for you?
So this currently I'm in the decision process for which college I want to go to. I've gotten accepted to multiple, so I just in their mechanical engineering programs, which is my major of choice. But I'm excited. That's right now where I'm at. I have scholarships to a few, so I can kind of use that maybe to help me out a little bit. But it's gonna be something that I get to continue my education, and the education I never even thought I was gonna. That level of education I never thought I was gonna get to in at one point in my life. So I think that is the biggest thing.
I can tell you're an incredibly bright young man, and I can tell the apple doesn't fall too far from the tree, because mom's also incredibly, you guys are both so wise and bright. I mean, Mom, you were just saying in our first episode that you didn't know, if he was going to be safe or not and make it to the next day, or to, end up in jail. And here we are celebrating not only you graduating, your family coming back together, and here you are talking about you've had multiple scholarships, multiple colleges, and trying to decide, can you believe where you're at?
yes, because I lived it.
Of course, I know. That was kind of a dumb question on my end.
No. I think so. When I take inventory, right? Like we spent yesterday at the ranch, and I probably have not fully processed that day. But what I felt was tremendous pride of Aiden, of our family, of the staff here, the tenacity with which they stayed in this journey with us. They could have given up too. It was hard. I mean, he tested everybody.
Which most teenagers do.
I don't mean to laugh at that, but no,
Aiden officially makes the top 5 most difficult Discovery Ranch students.
Probably the most memorable as well.
I would say that too. So I celebrate the success of every single person involved in this. So it's our children, it's my husband, it's Aiden, it's the staff, it's our education consultant who has become a close family member for all intents and purposes, our extended family, my siblings who have been right there for every minute of it, my parents who stayed plugged in. There's just been such an incredible support system throughout the community that we developed and grew into that was focused and centric to Aiden's survival and then later success. And so this is a moment that belongs to a lot of people. And
it takes a village.
It does. And our village is filled with people we love tremendously and owe an incredible debt of gratitude to, and invite into our life to see his success going forward, because he's only turning 18, and we're excited to share the rest of this journey with all these people that have become family.
There's so much out there that people really feel like gets attention that is negative, especially about this industry, and especially in the news on multiple things. But what's not out there enough is story like yours that need to be shared, that need to be louder, and that need to give hope and inspiration to those who are struggling and need to hear that there's hope.
I think it's imperative to know that Aiden is a story and he's our story. But in 20 years of Discovery Ranch's history, there are more than 1,000 Aidens.
Yes.
And I think we need to remember that. And for families to hang on to that. In just one program in Discovery Ranch, there are more than 1,000 students who have come through that program and lived successful lives beyond the crisis they were in when they arrived. And that is the story of hope, right? There are, yes, we have, and we are living, breathing example of the success, and then celebrate that this has been multiplied by more than 1,000 times.
Well, and a lot of families who haven't been able to share that story, and maybe for various reasons don't want to be this vulnerable. There are so many stories out there that are not being told. So you're just a fraction of that. Rivka and Aiden, thank you guys so much for joining us. And to our listeners, we really appreciate you guys tuning in and listening to this family's journey. And again, we wanted to remind you that they're only one story. There are thousands, if not more, of these stories out there that parents aren't necessarily able to tell. But know that if you are struggling with your youth and you're at a point where you're considering residential treatment, there is hope, there is healing, and there are safe programs out there that can help you come together as a family and find that connection and that vulnerability that leads to true healing and lasting healing. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah.
Thank you.